Khmer Rouge leaders to trial.
I have been waiting for justice.
Interrupting that report, but we can now cross live to London, where the British Prime Minister David Cameron is addressing Parliament on the situation in Libya. Let's listen in.
Rats using the full might of his armed forces, backed up by mercenaries. I didn't think Britain should stand by as Gaddafi slaughtered his people. Nor could we allow a failed pariah state festering on Europe's southern border with the potential to threaten our own security. The Libyan opposition and the Arab League both called for NATO to protect the civilian population. So together with the US and France, we secured agreement for UN Security Council resolutions 1970 and 1973. And with this clear legal mandate, this House voted by a majority of 544 in favour of military action. Today, the Libyan people have taken their country back. Mr. Speaker, I am grateful for the support that all sides of this House have given through these last 6 months, and I'm sure the whole House will join me in paying tribute to the incredible dedication and professionalism of our pilots, sailors, ground crew, and everyone in our armed forces that have been involved in this mission. But we should also pay a full tribute to the bravery and resilience of the Libyan people themselves. This has been their revolution, and none of it could have happened without them. Ordinary Libyans from all walks of life came together and rose up against Gaddafi. From the villages of the Nafusa Mountains to the tower blocks of Misrata, the alleyways of Zawiya and the streets of Benghazi, the Libyan people fought with incredible courage. Many paid with their lives, others have been seriously injured. And the struggle is not over. They still face forces loyal to a dictator who last week threatened to turn Libya into a hell. And the long work of building a new Libya is just beginning. But what is clear is that the future of Libya belongs to its people. The task of the international community now is to support them as they build that future. That means helping to finish the job, ensuring security, addressing the immediate humanitarian needs, and supporting the longer-term process of reconstruction and political transition to democracy. Let me address each in turn. First, finishing the job. Britain has been at the forefront of the military operation to protect the Libyan people. Our aircraft have made over 2,400 sorties across Libya, carrying out 1/5 of all NATO airstrikes against some 900 targets in Gaddafi's war machine. Our warships have supported this effort, helping to enforce the UN arms embargo and bringing aid to those in need. At its peak, some 2,300 British servicemen and women were deployed on Operation Ellamy, with 36 aircraft, including 16 Tornadoes, 6 Typhoons, 5 attack helicopters, tankers and specialist surveillance aircraft and helicopters. These were supported over the course of the operation by 8 warships and a hunter-killer submarine. But the job is not over. As we stand, the Free Libya forces have liberated Tripoli and control Libya's key population centres. But pro-Gaddafi forces still pose a threat and, in particular, control the towns of Bani Walid, Sirte and Seba in the south of the country. The National Transitional Council has been working to negotiate a peaceful outcome, but their leaders have explicitly requested that NATO continues its operations to protect civilians until that is achieved. Over the weekend, RAF Tornadoes struck 8 military command and control installations southwest of Wadan and 9 weapons and ammunition stores near Sirte. For as long as Gaddafi remains at large, the safety and the security of the Libyan people remains under threat. So let me be clear, we will not let up until the job is done. First, Britain and its NATO allies will continue to implement UN Security Council resolutions 1970 and 1973 for as long as we are needed to protect civilian life. Those thinking that NATO will somehow pull out or pull back must think again. We are ready to extend the NATO mandate for as long as is necessary. Second, we will support the Libyan people in bringing Gaddafi to justice. Mr. Speaker, this is a man whose crimes are becoming ever more apparent every day and who is wanted by the International Criminal Court. There must be no bolt hole, no pampered hiding place from justice. He must face the consequences of his action under international and Libyan law. Turning to security, the early signs have been encouraging. There has been some disorder, but it's been focused on symbols of the former regime. The National Transitional Council is moving to stand down fighters from outside Tripoli. The police are returning to the streets, and the council leaders have been clear and consistent in cautioning against disorder and, crucially, against reprisals. Britain and its international partners are helping too, working closely with the National Transitional Council in securing chemical weapons sites and supporting mine clearance in Misrata, Benghazi and other affected areas. On the humanitarian situation, Britain has played a leading role from the outset. The priorities today are health, water, food and fuel. On health, our humanitarian partners report that hospitals and clinics in Tripoli are now functioning well and staff are returning to work. Britain is providing additional support through the International Committee of the Red Cross, including surgical teams and medicines to treat up to 5,000 war-wounded patients. On water, substantial numbers of people in Tripoli are still without running water. However, UNICEF is procuring 11 million litres of bottled water, and the Libyan authorities are working to repair the water systems. The NTC report that 100 wells are back online, representing 20% of capacity. On fuel, there remain significant shortages, but the situation is improving. And the World Food Programme shipment is supporting the National Transitional Council with the procurement of 250,000 litres of fuel. Let me turn to reconstruction. Mr. Speaker, Libya is a country of 6.5 million people. It is one of the richest in Africa. Its proven oil reserves are the 9th largest in the world. Libya is fully capable of paying for its own reconstruction. Of course, there is a role for foreign advice, help and support, but I don't think we want to see an army of foreign consultants driving around in 4x4s, giving the impression this is something being done to the Libyans rather than something that is being done by them. Yeah. What the Libyans need above all is their frozen assets back. A week ago, Britain got Security Council agreement to release £1 billion worth of dinars back to the Central Bank of Libya, and RAF planes have already flown in hundreds of millions of dinars of these banknotes. At the summit in Paris last Thursday, the international community committed to unfreezing $15 billion of Libyan assets, and for their part, vitally, we expect the new Libyan authorities to meet their pledge of ensuring transparent and accountable financial systems. Next, political transition. Some people warned, as Gaddafi himself did, that the Libyan people could not be trusted with freedom, that without Gaddafi there would be chaos. What is emerging now, despite years of repression and the trauma of recent months, I believe is impressive and encouraging. In a far-reaching roadmap and constitutional declaration, the new authorities have set out a clear vision and a process for a new democratic Libya. This is not being imposed from above, it is being shaped by the Libyan people. At the Paris summit, Chairman Abdul Jalil spoke of his determination to build a society of tolerance and forgiveness with respect for rule of the law. A national conference will bring together all the tribes, civil society, men and women from east and west, united to shape this political transition. They are planning for a new constitution and elections within 20 months, and Britain is also in discussions in New York about a new UN Security Council resolution to reflect the new situation. The new Libyan authorities must now be able to represent their country at the UN as they did last week at the Arab League. Mr. Speaker, I also look forward to building our bilateral relationship with the new Libyan authority. We have close relations with the NTC through our mission in Benghazi, and today the UK's Special Representative is going to Tripoli to re-establish our full diplomatic presence in that city. Yeah. Our relationship with the new Libya must, of course, deal with the serious issues from the past. On Megrahi, this is obviously a matter for the Scottish Executive. I have made my position clear. I believe he should never have been sent back to Libya in the first place. On WPC Yvonne Fletcher, I want to see justice for her family. There is an ongoing police investigation, and the House will wish to know that Prime Minister Jibril has assured me of the new Libyan authorities' intention to cooperate fully. Finally, significant accusations have been reported today that under the last government, relations between the British and Libyan security services became too close, particularly in 2003. It was because of accusations of potential complicity by the British security services in the mistreatment of detainees overseas, including rendition, that I took steps in July last year to try and sort this whole problem out. As the House will remember, we acted to bring to an end the large number of court cases being brought against the government by former inmates of Guantanamo. We've issued new guidance to security and intelligence services personnel on how to deal with detainees held by other countries. And we've asked the retired judge, Sir Peter Gibson, to examine issues around the detention and treatment of terrorist suspects overseas. And this inquiry has already said it will look at these latest accusations very carefully. My concern throughout has been not only to remove any stain on Britain's reputation, but also to deal with these accusations of malpractice so as to enable our security services to get on with the vital work that they do. And because they cannot speak for themselves, let me put on record once again our enormous gratitude for all they do to keep our country safe. Mr. Speaker, the achievement of the Libyan people gives hope to those across the wider region who want a job, a voice and a stake in how their country is run. On Syria, Britain will continue to lead the argument for a UN resolution to build on the EU's oil embargo that is now in place. The message to President Assad must be clear. He's lost all legitimacy and can no longer claim to lead Syria. The violence must end, and he should step aside for the good of his country. Mr. Speaker, it is the Libyan people who have liberated their country. There was no foreign occupying army. This has been a Libyan-led process assisted by the international community. Many cynics proclaimed stalemate and asserted that Gaddafi would never be defeated. The Libyan people proved them wrong. It was a unique set of circumstances and not something that we can or would wish to repeat all over the world. But I've never accepted the argument that because you can't do everything, you shouldn't do anything. Mr. Speaker, removing Gaddafi from power was a major achievement. Although the work is not yet done, the Libyan people can be proud of what they've achieved, and we can be proud of what we've done to help them. And I commend this statement to the House.